The Obama administration is on the defense after a Guardian reporter, Glenn Greenwald, published a bombshell story that the National Security Agency had a court order to collect the phone records of millions of Verizon customers over a 3-month period. This shouldn't come as a surprise to RT viewers because we've been covering the growth of government surveillance of citizens. Just in case you missed it, here's a refresher.
It seems that secrecy is actually strengthening the national security state in order to hide from accountability and oversight.
It's more than just invasion of privacy. It's about destroying the concept of privacy online.
The NSA has operated continually under the shroud of non-transparency and secrecy, despite a commitment on President Obama's first day in office that this is going to be the most transparent administration ever. The NSA just doesn't think that applies to them.
Well, in the quest to hunt down terrorists, the Obama administration has announced plans to give spy agencies full access to people's finances.
It's going to allow further erosion of our privacy rights that's been going on since 9/11.
The mechanisms are already in place for that type of control and monitoring. And someone say you're over-dramatizing. All you have to do is look at what's happening. I see it getting far worse. It's a total hypocrisy as far as I'm concerned.
This court order was only the beginning. It soon became clear that the NSA had been renewing these collection requests every 3 months for the past 7 years, and that AT&T and Sprint are also involved. These revelations led to a scathing New York Times editorial which said, "The administration has now lost all credibility," which was later edited to say, "The administration has now lost all credibility on this issue." And that was before another story broke that the NSA and the Federal Bureau of Investigation are running a program called PRISM. Well, what is it? The Washington Post found that the government has been secretly collecting all kinds of data from 9 Silicon Valley giants, including Google, Apple, Facebook, Skype, and Microsoft, since 2007. PRISM collects audio, video, photos, email, cloud documents, and chat logs. PRISM can even see what you're searching for or typing in real time. So much for the defense now that the NSA isn't looking at any content, merely collecting data. But this morning, Obama defended his policies. Take a listen.
I came in with a healthy skepticism about these programs. My team evaluated them. We scrubbed them thoroughly. We actually expanded some of the oversight, increased some of the safeguards. But my assessment and my team's assessment was that they help us prevent terrorist attacks.
So is this all excusable in the name of preventing terrorism? With me to discuss this, I'm joined now by RT's Anastasia Churkina in New York, and in-house with me, Colonel Morris Davis. Anastasia, I want to start with you. Who is affected by this PRISM program?
Well, Margaret, it's you, me, and everyone we know in a nutshell, because the extent and scope of this program, something that's certainly being described as breathtaking by civil rights groups, by outraged Americans, because it entails hundreds of millions of Americans and what they do with their phones and online, because what we're talking about here is Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint providing information about phone calls to the NSA and the FBI. We know that this information includes things like the location of phone calls being made, the phone numbers called, the duration of the calls. We're hearing that the content has not yet been made available to officials, but certainly with the way things are going, it won't be surprised if that happens pretty soon. And these 3 companies combined include as many as almost a staggering 300 million subscribers. So these numbers are just absolutely insane. And when we talk about the PRISM program that you mentioned, the numbers are even larger, because we're talking about 9 super popular, huge web companies that are used by people all over the world, and most certainly there are huge concerns in terms of whether or not it's just Americans being tracked through U.S. companies doing things on U.S. soil, but also the people they communicate with on foreign lands, which certainly seems to be the case because, you know, Americans and people living in the U.S. using the 3 big telecommunication companies call abroad, and those calls are monitored, and they also use use these big websites to do any sorts of online activity, and all of that is apparently has been traced over the last period of time.
Okay. Anastasia, I want to take this back to you. Do you think that these tech companies knew what the feds were doing?
Margaret, could you repeat the question, please?
Do you think that these tech companies knew what was happening?
The tech companies, we're basically talking about a super secret court order. When it comes to Verizon in particular, we know that a secret court order was released in April, but before that, in 2006, this activity began and was prolonged every 3 months. In terms of the internet companies involved, there has been, excuse me, information released saying that basically maybe they were not even in the know about all of this being gathered. But when it comes to the telecommunication giants, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, they certainly knew that this was going on, but there was a court order released basically silencing them to make any comments about this. And of course now, as these scandals leak out, none of these companies are certainly making any comments.
Okay. Colonel Davis, I want to take it now to you. The NSA, this has just come out, that the data mining of companies, the DOJ is wiretapping and surveilling reporters, it seems. Have we seen the worst of it, and when does it end?
Well, we don't really know. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to depend on leaks in order for the public to be educated on what the government, you know, is doing with our tax money and in our names. But the government hadn't been forthcoming. I think what we really need is like a church commission that we had years ago to look at the intelligence community. We need to know what all these programs are, what all is the government doing, and then the public can make an informed decision. But right now it's just you know, a leak here and a leak there, and we find out more and more. And it's disturbing.
Here a leak, there a leak, everywhere a leak. It sounds like. All right, have we seen the worst of this yet, do you think?
We don't know. I mean, I think we all had suspicions about these programs, but I think the extent that we've learned over the last 24 hours, I think has shocked a lot of people. It should be alarming to people that you know, the government is saying, trust me. You know, the president today in his remarks said that, you know, if the American people don't trust the executive branch, the Congress, and the courts, then we've got a problem. Well, we've got a problem because the majority of the American people don't trust the president, the Congress, and the courts. If you look at the polling data, but they're being, you know, we're being told to trust us, we're doing the right thing. But as we've seen with the IRS problem recently, that you know, the public needs to be skeptical about its government, and we've got a right to know what they're doing in our names.
We certainly do. All right, Anastasia, I want to take it back to you. I understand that the hacktivist collective Anonymous hacked into the NSA last night. Can you tell me more about that, and what information did they have?
Well, Margaret, Anonymous, the online freedom-fighting group, has certainly gotten hold of documents. About 13 of them have been released. Most curiously, they include things like the U.S. Department of Defense so-called strategic vision for controlling the internet, as well as information on an intelligence sharing network which shared data with partners throughout the world. So certainly this is something that's also a reason to kind of raise eyebrows, because if this is all information shared throughout the world, lots of questions have been arising in terms of what kind of, you know, international scope this spying has had. Certainly there are many questions about the involvement of the British government in terms of how much they knew, and this is something that we're going to be finding out in the days to come. There's certainly quite a bit of outrage about this. We're hearing coming from Europe, for one. For instance, Germany is saying that, you know, we need to find out exactly how wide and how far this reaches.
Okay. All right. We're running out of time here. I want to take it back to you, Colonel. You know, we've seen in recent weeks that journalists who procure these leaks, they've been listed as co-conspirators under this Espionage Act. Should the department, do we expect them to take action against the Guardian now? Could we see that happening?
I don't know. I'd certainly be concerned about the person that provided the information to Glenn Greenwald and to the Washington Post, apparently, because, you know, the policy has been not to go after the program, but the person that disclosed the program. So I think that person's, you know, in jeopardy.
Okay. All right, Anastasia, I want to take it back to you. It started with this Guardian report about the NSA collecting Verizon customer metadata. Is this just small potatoes compared to this PRISM program?
Well, Margaret, you know, none of this is really small potatoes because, yes, we did initially hear about Verizon collecting all of this excessive information, but certainly the PRISM program is extremely extensive because it includes not just, you know, monitoring things that we all, again, suspected are taking place, but people throughout the world, really, that use these websites. And in terms of the Verizon and the telecommunications scandal in general and the PRISM scandal separately, this is all just huge numbers, including enormous amounts of people. So let's hope this is not just the beginning, but it feels like much more information may be released on these privacy concerns in the time to come.
All right, one final question to you, Colonel. We have to leave it there. Could we see news gathering itself become criminalized if this kind of behavior keeps coming out of this administration?
Hopefully not, but it's hard to say because, I mean, who would have expected that we'd be having this discussion now? I mean, if there's one person that's looking back and smiling right now, it's probably Osama bin Laden, because it certainly looks like he may have won and got us to turn on ourselves and give up our liberties. So it's been a victory for him and a defeat for democracy.
It certainly seems that way. Thank you, guys. That was RT correspondent Anastasia Churkina in New York and Colonel Morris Davis, a professor from Howard University School of Law here in D.C.